This conference will now be recorded.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining us. Again, my name is Kendall Kopchick and I'm one of the elder care social workers with the Orange County Department on Aging. And today we're going to hear from Catherine Honeycutt of the Better Business Bureau about fraud prevention. So a little bit about Catherine. She's the communication specialist for the Better Business Bureau serving Eastern North Carolina. She's a North Carolina native and grew up in a small town outside of Charlotte and moved to Raleigh to study communications and public relations at North Carolina State University. After graduating, she married her high school sweetheart and the two kept close roots to NC State. Before joining the Better Business Bureau, Catherine honed her communication skills at a local public relations agency. In her free time, Catherine enjoys spending time with her family and friends, exploring new restaurants, and is currently pushing herself to run a half marathon. So welcome, Catherine, and thank you for being with us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kendall, for having me. I'm really excited to share some valuable information with you all and hopefully help prevent some scams, help you guys identify scams. And so I am actually going to cut my webcam off for right now, but I'll bring it back up at the end as we do some questions. But in the meantime, as Kendall said, if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the chat box or raise your hand. I think that's a feature as well, and I'll try to get to those as quickly as possible. But if I miss them, I'll definitely check those at the end. But let's go ahead and dive in a little bit. Many of you may be familiar with the Better Business Bureau and maybe know some of the services and offerings that we provide, but I just wanted to give you a quick background of some of the things that we do and a little bit about our mission. So our mission is to educate and protect consumers, establish best practices for businesses, and solve complex marketplace problems. So some of the ways that we do this include giving presentations like the one I'm currently doing to community groups. We also travel to different schools and universities and business organizations to talk a little bit about best business practices, and a large one is to educate listeners on scams. And so that's going to be a big focus of our presentation today, is just to educate you on scams and help you identify scams that may be targeting you. And our vision is to be a trusted marketplace where consumers and businesses prosper. So that's our goal. That's what motivates us to do all these different programs. You may have noticed on bbb.org, you can research different businesses, their business profiles. You can leave complaints as well as reviews. And so we'll dive into some of those resources in just a few slides. But I just wanted to give you a quick little rundown of what BBB is. We've been around for a really long time, and you can see the little screenshot on my presentation here. That's what our website profile looks like, and you can get all of our contact information there. So just a little bit about us. And now I want to really transition to the meat of today's conversation, which is all about scams. So if you're able to use your chat feature, I am interested to know if anyone has a guess as to how much money is lost annually to scams. So how much money do you think we lost to scams last year or annually? If you want to put your guess in the chat box. Or if you want to unmute and blurt it out, you can do that as well. Okay, I've got 2 million as a guess. Anybody else? Well, that's okay. It is a little bit more than 2 million. It is actually $50 billion is how much is annually lost to scams. And so this number is huge and it's a really big issue, but not a lot of scams are reported. And so that means that scammers are really good at what they do, but consumers are victims. Also, there's the stigma around scams that, if they get scammed, they feel like, oh, it would have never happened to me, I'm so embarrassed. And so that's part of our job in giving these presentations, is to help squash that stigma, so to speak, and help educate you on scams, so that not only can you avoid them, but if you do fall victim, you know what to do. You don't feel, ashamed and isolated, because $50 billion, that's a lot. And that's a lot of consumers who have been scammed. So just to put a few more things into perspective, so the top 5 scams from 2019 included employment scams, cryptocurrency, online purchasing, fake check and money orders, as well as advanced fee money loans. And the thing is, when scams, the top rated scams, those don't just go away. Unfortunately, they continue to build year over year. And so, for example, employment scams were #1 in 2019. And we saw this become a major issue with COVID-19, as many people lost their jobs or had to be temporarily on unemployment. And so these fake job postings and things really started to amp up during that time. So that's just to give you an idea of some of the scams that are out there and the most common ones from last year. But the most impersonated organizations, and some of you may be familiar with some of the scams associated with these organizations, but the Social Security Administration, Publishers Clearinghouse, Microsoft, the IRS, and Apple. So this means that scammers were impersonating these various groups and businesses to try to get money or information from their victims. So that's a major red flag, and I'll come back to that during this entire presentation, that if scammers are always wanting your money and or personal information, so that can be the #1 red flag for you if someone is trying to get that information, whether it be through a phone call, a text message, an email, anything of that nature. That can be your first red flag to question, is this legitimate or not? And the other point I like to make is that scammers want to create fear and a sense of urgency with their victims. So if you feel rushed and it's all in their plan, that you don't have time to ask anyone else if they think that this could be real or not, it's all in their plan. So that's another point that I'll come back to throughout our time together today, is to just take your time, don't rush into anything. And we'll get to some of those other tangible tips in just a few slides. And then finally, I want to mention that seniors are the most targeted demographic, but millennials lose the most money. So it's really important, no matter what age group you're in, to understand that it could happen to you. A lot of people assume that just because you're older, you are, more likely to fall victim. And although scammers try to target seniors, the numbers show that millennials lose the most money. So no group is safe, unfortunately, and it's really important to just kind of squash that stigma and realize that it could happen to you, but that's why I'm talking to you all today, and we're going to go through some really basic ways that you can help protect yourself. So we're going to move into a couple of the different types of scams and specific tips to combat those scams. So the first one I want to talk about are phone scams. You may be well aware of those fake phone calls that you get. If you have caller ID, it may come up as an unknown number. More recently, phone companies have been trying to make it come up to even put out that it could be a spam call. So I'm sure some of you have gotten those or know people who have gotten those calls. They can be very annoying. But some of the scams associated with these calls could be contact tracing scams. That's actually one of the more current scams that's going on in light of COVID-19. These scammers are impersonating contact tracers, and they will call you and say, hey, you've come in contact with someone who tested positive. I need to gather some information on you. And unfortunately, that is what contact tracers do. So when scammers impersonate them, it can be a little difficult to tell the difference. But some of the quick tips that you can know right off the bat if it's real or not is that contact tracers will never tell you the name of the person that you came in contact with. So you know right off the bat if they call and say, hey, your friend Susie tested positive, you can know that it's a scam and you can hang up right away. And then just some other notes is that when they're asking for your personal information, contact tracers may ask you, you know, where have you been recently? Because they're just trying to connect the dots between people who have tested positive and try to prevent the spread of the pandemic. But they will not ask you for things like your social security number or banking information. And so be very cautious of that, of any caller who asks for that information. Do not give it out. That is very sensitive information, and especially, you know, contact tracers are not going to ask that. Another common scam I have on here are lottery scams. They will not ask for that either. So just be sure that you're not giving out any of that information. And I also like to mention with phone scams, it could be phone calls, but it can also be text messages. So I know that in light of COVID, as people have been quarantined, a lot of families, you know, maybe grandparents didn't necessarily have texting before. A lot more have it now as a way to stay in contact with family. And so be wary of to any text message you get that says, click here, you know, you've come in contact with someone, please click here to fill out your survey. That link could be, you know, hazardous to your device. It could install malware on your device, but it could also ask very personal information that you don't want to give out, such as your social security number or your banking information, so on and so forth. So just be aware of that. We'll go into in a few slides the details of how you can determine if a link is real or not, or trustworthy or not. But just note that when you get those random text messages, most of the time they are a scam. And so just delete them, don't respond, and don't click on the link. Another common scam that I want to mention is the grandparent scam. So this is where you could get a phone call from a random number and it's your grandchild saying, hi, I am stuck in such and such place, whether it's out of the country, in another state, in jail, and I need you to send me money to get out of whatever situation that they're in, but please don't tell my parents. That's the most common line that they'll use, and they want you to think that it's urgent. They want you to think that they're in danger and that you shouldn't tell their parents, but it's simply not the case. It's all a scam, and it's just a way to try to get money from you. So be aware that those scams do happen, and if someone does call and you really think, oh my gosh, this could be my granddaughter, I'm really not sure, you can always, you know, dial on the other phone, call the number that you have for them and say, hey, where are you? Are you okay? And just to confirm that they're safe before, you know, do not proceed with sending any money of that nature. But also, if you don't have a way to get in contact with them, or you're not sure the best way to confirm their identity, go ahead and start asking questions of, you know, that only your grandchild would know, and try to discern, you know, if it's real or not, but be aware that it most likely is a scam. And then finally, COVID test scams. So this may, you know, send you a text message or leave you a voicemail that says, hi, please click this link to take an online coronavirus test to, you know, get your, maybe it's an economic relief check. And we'll go into some of those economic relief checks in a minute and the scams around those. But essentially, they're wanting you to take a test, or, you know, again, it's similar to the contact tracing. They're calling you and trying to ask for, you know, hey, do you have any symptoms? And it might start out where you may think it's legitimate. They're asking about symptoms, but then that conversation slowly turns personal and they start asking for that more sensitive information, such as banking information, social security number, all those types of things. So with that being said, those are just a few of the common scams that we're seeing right now. But a few tips I kind of touched on, but I'll go over them. Always send unfamiliar numbers to voicemail. They can either leave you a message, or if they know you, then they'll get a hold of you in another way, because you can't always trust your caller ID, unfortunately. So, you know, a lot of scammers can impersonate phone numbers, and we've received reports of people getting phone calls from their own number, which just seems crazy. So don't trust your caller ID. You can use a call blocking service. I encourage you to check with your phone provider first to see if they offer that, because a lot of them are. But if not, you can look into an app called Nomo Robo, NOMO ROBO. And it's a free call blocking service. It's an app that you download to your device, and it can help block those spam calls. Finally, keep your phone number private. This is super important. We see this a lot, people posting their phone number on social media, to Facebook, or sending it, publicly. Just always be sure to keep your phone number private, because once they have your number, then the calls will just not stop. And finally, report scam calls. So like I mentioned earlier, it's a $50 billion industry, but very few scams are actually reported. And so we know that, unless you report it, we don't know that the scam is going on. So please report it. In order to, protect your family, your friends, your neighbors. It's just a good thing to do. And I'll talk in a few slides about various ways that you can report not just calls, but other scams. And I got a message in the chat box from Sheila. She asked what the app was, so I will put it in the chat box. It's Nomo Robo. Awesome. Great question. So the next type of scam I want to talk about are email scams. I'm sure you've gotten a random email from an account that you don't recognize, or a name you don't recognize. But some of the common scams include a false bank alert. So it's emailing you to let you know, hey, your bank account is, you need to update your privacy information, or you withdraw your checking account or something like that. And unfortunately, it's a scammer trying to get that personal information again. Another example is a lottery or contest winner scam. So you get the email, and I will mention too that some of these scams can be done in multiple different platforms. So you may get them in a phone call or email. So for the lottery and contest winner scam, it's a good example that you could get an email saying, hi, you have recently won a free vacation. Click here to claim your prize. As well as that could come in the form as a text message, or they could leave you a voicemail and say, call us back to claim your free your free prize, your free trip. So keep that in mind, that they can be done on multiple platforms. And then finally, the government relief and economic impact payments. So this has been huge the past couple months in light of the COVID pandemic, where many people were out of work. They needed these relief checks, and scammers started sending emails saying, hey, click here to claim your government relief check. They may ask a series of questions, what address do you want your check mailed to? Or please put in your banking information to have the check deposited. And unfortunately, it was a scam. They were simply trying to get your personal information. We also saw cases where scammers reached out and requested, hey, your economic relief payment check is ready to be mailed, but you need to pay shipping. So please pay us the $5 or what have you to have your check shipped to you. And unfortunately, you never receive the check, you would be out of the $5. So that's a really important thing to keep in mind, especially if there's talk of, new stimulus checks, or, this is a good point to make if you happen to be a business owner or know a business owner and they're applying for some of those economic relief loans. Those have worked the same way, in that scammers are wanting to take advantage of every situation possible for their own monetary gain. So keep that in mind. I will mention before we go into the questions I have at the bottom that with the government relief checks, they will reach out, they already have your information on file from when you file taxes. So whatever you put on there to get your refund from taxes, whether it's a direct deposit or have it mailed to your address, they already have that on file. But you can go to irs.gov if another check comes out, or if you haven't received the initial one, you can go there, reach out to them directly to get information regarding your stimulus check or any other economic impact payments, just to ensure that you are in communication with that organization directly and you don't have the risk of it being a scammer. So ask yourself these questions to avoid some email scams. So the first is, do you know the sender of the email? If not, don't respond. Don't even open it. Just go ahead and delete it, put it in your trash pile. The second is, have you checked the link? So as I mentioned, sometimes you will get emails with links in them that say you've won a free prize, and it might say, click here, and the link is hyperlinked to that word, or the link looks clean and it might say, google.com, but when you hover over it, it's actually a series of letters and numbers, and it's actually not the official site. We see this a lot with the bank situation where it says, hey, please update your privacy information here, and you hover over the link and it's not even the bank's website. It's a very ugly looking URL, and that's your red flag right there. Do not click. So keep those two in mind. And then the third one is, does the email contain grammatical errors? So we know that a lot of these scammers are not in the US, so English may be a second language for them, and sometimes they miss some spelling errors that we could pick out very easily. So be on the lookout for those. Look for extra letters or a missing letter, punctuation. All of that could be an indicator that it's a scam. Next, are there any attachments in the email? So do they have any attached files? Don't click on those. If you do, it could install malware on your device. Same thing with the links. That's why you always want to hover over, because you never know what you're agreeing to when you click that link without knowing where it's coming from or where it's directing you to. Also, check to see, does the email request personal information? That goes back to my main point, is that scammers want personal information and or money. So if it's asking for either of those two things, that's your initial red flag that, okay, this could be a scam, and you want to proceed with caution and reach out, if it's an organization that you work well with. For example, if it's a bank reaching out and it's not even your bank that you use, obviously it's a scam, but it could be a little tricky if it happens to be the bank that you bank with and they're asking you to update your settings. You can always reach out to them directly with the number that you have on file, whether it's on the back of your card or in a packet that you got when you signed up for your account. Always reach out to them directly to, again, ensure that you're not dealing with a scammer. And finally, if you have a relationship with the company, so if it is your bank reaching out, are they addressing you by name? Because this could be a red flag that they are sending out many different emails to thousands and thousands of inboxes just trying to get a hit. That's what's known as these phishing scams. So they're essentially putting out a bunch of lines and trying to get someone to bite. So if they are not addressing you by name, and for example, it's your bank or another organization that you're a member of, then that could be a red flag if they're not using your name. So I'll give you guys just a quick second. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. about phone scams or email scams, I'm happy to answer those. Awesome. Well, if you have any, feel free to put them in there, but we'll move on to the next type, which are internet scams. These are pretty common. You may be well aware of them, just being online and online shopping, and you purchase something, it never shows up, or you have to pay extra fees and that sort of thing. So the top internet scams that I want to mention are online shopping, free trial offers, which is, you sign up for a free trial and then unfortunately it auto renews you to be a member and they keep billing you for that. Grocery delivery scams is something that we've seen pop up in light of the pandemic. And then shortage and price gouging scams. So those have been popular with your typical protective equipment, or cleaning equipment as well. So masks, hand sanitizer, even toilet paper, all those things. There's that shortage angle that they pull, and then they try to get you to pay more money for it. And I just want to reiterate that price gouging is illegal. So please report that. But with the grocery store delivery scams, I want to mention that because I know a lot of people are using delivery systems, or they're ordering and going to pick up their groceries so they don't have to go inside. And we saw a few reports come in where people had submitted their orders online and unknowingly it was a fake website, but scammers are really good at what they do. They don't, doesn't become a $50 billion industry because of, bad work. So unfortunately, they're very good at their job. And these websites looked very sophisticated, but unfortunately, when the consumer went on to order their groceries, they paid for them and then they never showed up at their home, or they ordered them for pickup. And when they showed up at the establishment, they had no record of the order because it had been placed through a fraudulent site. So some of the ways to prevent, this grocery store delivery scam or shopping from a site that is not real or is fraudulent, you first can check the business with BBB. So I mentioned earlier the business profiles that we have at bbb.org. You can research any type of business. You can research the specific name of the business, or if you're just looking for, in general, a business that you want to know their reviews look like, their rating, all of that, you can type them into the search bar. And there are various different features of their business profile. So you can see what their letter rating is, kind of like in school. There's an A+ to an F, and you can see how they rate. And you can also check their different reviews and complaints that have been submitted against them. Secondly, you can confirm if the site is secure. So this is a big deal if you're shopping online. I know the holidays are just around the corner, so you may try to get some online shopping in, but be sure that the site you're using is legitimate. So if you notice in the bottom right of the screen that I'm sharing, you can see some of the features that I'm going to mention. The first is in the URL. You want to make sure that it's HTTPS, the S standing for secure, and then look for that lock icon to the left-hand side of HTTPS. And then finally, if you are using an Apple product, so an iPhone, a Mac, an iPad, any of those Apple products, the entire URL will actually light up green. It will be highlighted in green. So that will be an indicator that this site is secure. You can see the example below the secure one where, www.example.com doesn't look too scary, right? I mean, it looks pretty clean. It doesn't have a bunch of random letters and numbers, but it's not secure. So that means that it's likely a fake website, not secure, shopping on there with, your credit card and stuff, you're at risk that your information could be compromised. So another tip is to read the fine print. This is especially true when you are, booking a trip and you're looking for that refund policy. And I know a lot of people aren't traveling right now, but if you're planning a future trip or even just buying really any item right now, a lot of companies have changed their return and or refund policy because it's, you know, a risk for them to take items back in some cases. So be sure to read that fine print so you know exactly what you're purchasing and or signing up for. The next one is probably the most important thing I will tell you all day, and that is shop with a credit card. So when you use a credit card, you're way more likely to get your money back. Your credit card company can go to bat for you and help you get your money back. But if you pay with a debit card or a check or, you know, cash, that money is essentially gone the second that you spend it. So be sure to shop with a credit card whenever possible. Beware of too good to be true deals. So this is especially true with that price gouging scam that I mentioned. If you find that it's extremely discounted compared to what you would normally pay for something, then that can be a red flag that it's fake. Finally, keep documentation of your order, because if you want to get a refund or you want to fight that, hey, I ordered this and never received it, you want to have that initial documentation with your proof of purchase. So those are a little bit about internet scams, and we're going to move on to the next type, which is not technically a type, but it's one that is worth mentioning, especially right now during the pandemic, and it's fake charities. So when a major natural disaster or a health event like the current pandemic that we're in, you might be looking for ways to help, which is great. A lot of people are wanting to give back and help communities that are struggling. And unfortunately, scammers want to use the same events to take advantage of your generosity. So, you know, we see scammers trying to target people with fake funding sites, fake accounts that are trying to raise money for a given cause, but in reality, it's all a scam and they're just trying to steal your money. So how can you give wisely? Well, you can give to established organizations and be sure to do your research on them. So as I mentioned earlier, you can research various businesses before giving them your service at bbb.org. You can do the same thing with charities at give.org. So you can look up the charity that you're interested in. You can see, you know, all the information that we have on them, and we'll let you know kind of how they're rated. So it's a little bit different than the business profiles, but you can still see, you know, essentially a trustworthiness scale of the business and determine if it's somewhere that you feel comfortable giving your money to. But some of the red flags that you can look for is, you know, how old is this organization? Did it just pop up in the last week or few weeks? And if so, then that could be a potential red flag that it's not legitimate. It could be a scam that's just trying to take advantage of the situation at hand. But I also realized that during a crazy time like we're in, people are looking for ways to give back. And so they may start a new charity and they may, you know, try to create these new funding sites to help raise money for communities and various groups. So the best thing to do is do your research ahead of time to prevent a headache later, and research them here. Check out all the information that we have on them. And if you don't see, this goes for both charities and businesses. If you try to research a business and or charity and notice that it's not in our system, please reach out to us and let us know, because we can, you know, do a little bit of research on our end and see if we have any information on them to create a profile with. But like I said, some businesses may be new during this time, or charities may be new, so they may just not be on our radar yet. But we want to be sure to get them on our radar and get that information up there for you guys. So that's a great thing, that if you see something that's not showing up, be sure to reach out. You can send us an email or submit a message to us at bbb.org to let us know. So that's a little bit about fake charities. And then before we wrap up, I want to mention reporting scams because it's super important, do your part in holding scammers accountable, because this will keep not only you safe, but it can help fellow consumers, your neighbors, your friends, your family safe from these scams as well. Because as I said many times, $50 billion is a huge number, and scams just aren't recorded. People are ashamed. They're embarrassed that they never believed that this would happen to them. So you can do your part in holding scammers accountable. If you see something, or if you get a message, an email, or you see a website that looks a little fraudulent, you can submit that. So depending on the type of scam that it is, you may want to reach out to various different groups. So I listed them here: the Federal Trade Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Internet Crime Complaint Center, identitytheft.gov, and then finally our BBB Scam Tracker. So that's a place where you can report scams, but you can also track scams. So if you see the heat map on the screen that I'm sharing, you can notice that it has this interactive heat map here, so you can actually zoom in further than this or zoom out to see, the US as a whole, or zoom all the way in to see your specific town. And at the bottom, it will let you know the scam, the date that it was submitted, the date that it happened, the type of scam that it was, the monetary loss, and this can just help you to be aware of what's going on in your area, so you know what types of scams are attacking people near you, and just be educated, be knowledgeable of the scams going on in your area. But again, I can't stress it enough. If you see something, please report it so that we can help prevent scams from happening to other people as well. And so that's a little bit about our scam tracker. You can interact with this map or submit a scam that you notice at bbb.org/scam tracker. So be sure to check that out. And then finally, I want to mention a few of the resources that we have available for you all. So Brunch with BBB is a podcast that we just launched this year. Actually, myself and my coworker Louise co-host the podcast, and we've been doing it around the time the pandemic started. We just wanted to provide a resource to businesses and consumers to talk about current marketplace trends, as well as some scams that are going on. So that's just a really fun place to, you can listen to it whenever, you can multitask while listening to it and just learn about what's going on in the area, as well as hear from some really cool businesses that are nearby. Another resource is Scambusters and Scambusters Remote. This is actually a program that we typically take into schools and universities to educate them on scams. It's an interactive game presentation, so the participants will have to detect whether a scam is real or not based on the information provided, and they literally become scam busters throughout the process. So in light of the pandemic, we've created a remote version, and I can send Kendall that information to distribute to you all in case you're interested in playing. You can play yourself, you can play it with your family, your friends, your children, your grandchildren. It's a great way to just break the ice about scams and get to know what kind of scams are going on, and see if you can be a scam buster. The third one I want to mention is bbbshoplocal.org. This is a website that we created, again, in light of the pandemic, to highlight businesses that are trustworthy, they're accredited in your local area. So now more than ever, it's crucial to support the local community, and that includes shopping local. A lot of people may not want to go out right now, but you can order takeout or delivery from local restaurants. You can shop online from local boutiques, even farmers markets. We've seen them, you order ahead of time and you just drive by and they put your groceries in your car for you. And so those are just some really simple ways to help boost and support the local economy around you. So go to bbbshoplocal.org to check out some businesses that you might want to support. And then reiterating, we've got those business profiles on bbb.org where you can see their rating and all that important information. So be sure before you shop, check them out there, see what their rating is, any reviews and complaints that have been submitted. Be sure to read those. And then finally, I just want to mention, if you are on social media, if you have a Facebook, an Instagram, Twitter, even LinkedIn, we are active on all of those accounts. You can find us by searching BBB of Eastern North Carolina, and you can follow us. This is a great resource because scams are always changing, and unfortunately, scammers are constantly changing up their tactics to try to be successful. So by following us, we will post scam alerts periodically. As we get new information, we will be sure to share it on there to let you know, hey, this is a scam that we're seeing. Please beware of such and such app, or this website is fraudulent, just to help protect you and, again, other consumers. That's a great, simple, and easy way to stay in the loop with us. So with that, that's all I have for you all today, but I would love to take any questions you may have, or if you have any scam stories, if this has happened to you. I hate hearing them, but it also helps me do my job and listen to, be able to share your experiences with others as well.
Thank you so much, Catherine.
Yeah, thank you.
And for those of you watching the video on our YouTube channel, please be sure to subscribe for more great videos. You can always reach out to the Aging Helpline for age-related information and assistance at 919-968-2087, or visit us online at orangecounty.nc.gov/aging.